Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into one of America's most famous and, frankly, most fatal folklore legends. We're not just, telling ghost stories around a campfire here. Instead, we're looking at the exact evidence and historical accounts from our source material to reconstruct a narrative that's literally fascinated people for over 2 centuries. It's a wild ride, so let's get into it. Can a spirit actually commit a murder? I mean, it's a super heavy question, right? But today we're investigating a chilling historical case where a spectral entity didn't just, haunt a family by knocking on walls or sliding chairs around. No, this entity outright claimed responsibility for a patriarch's death. We are literally looking at a situation where the paranormal allegedly crossed the line into physical homicide. Crazy stuff. We're going to unpack the escalating terror that gripped the Bell Farm. And what makes this explainer so fascinating to me is how we can actually trace the progression of these events. We'll watch it move from these creepy, disembodied whispers in the dark to a literal physical climax that left a man dead.
All right, part one, the awakening, the entity called Kate.
So as the disturbances at the Bell Farm grew, the phenomena evolved. The entity actually began speaking clearly with a voice that eventually echoed throughout the entire house. It was like a bad roommate you couldn't see. And the spirit referred to herself as Kate. Now, according to the local folklore detailed in our sources, this name is deeply significant. It's tied to a living neighbor named Kate Batts. See, the allegation was that John Bell had actually cheated Kate Batts in a land purchase. So suddenly, we're looking at a very clear, very human potential motive for this haunting. We're talking pure, unadulterated revenge. And what's really fascinating here is how her character profile builds. She wasn't just, making bumps in the night. She was highly intelligent, intensely communicative, and honestly, incredibly malicious. She had this really dark sense of humor. Bizarrely, she would even recite sermons to the family, kind of mixing religious mockery right into her torment. Plus, she made accurate predictions and continually taunted the family members. Guys, this was psychological warfare, plain and simple. As documented right here in our source texts, her bizarre antics and undeniable booming presence, well, they couldn't be kept a secret for long. I mean, you can't exactly have an invisible entity reciting sermons and echoing through your halls without the neighbors noticing, right? Eventually, this whole situation spread like wildfire and drew the attention of the outside world, including some very powerful, very prominent historical figures. Which brings us to part two, the escalation. The presidential encounter. So the story of Kate spread so widely across the region that it actually reached the ears of General Andrew Jackson. Now, keep in mind, this is before his time as the President of the United States. Jackson was a notoriously tough, super skeptical military man, but even he reportedly decided he just had to travel to the Bell Farm to investigate these wild claims for himself. And this whole encounter brilliantly illustrates the sheer physical power of this entity. Get this. As Jackson is traveling to the farm, his heavy wagon wheels mysteriously lock entirely in place, like they are completely stuck. Then, out of nowhere, a disembodied voice rings out, specifically offering to let Jackson continue his journey. And the second she verbally gives him permission to proceed, the wagon is suddenly freed. It's wild. She completely stopped a future president's heavy wagon dead in its tracks just to prove she was the one running the show. Moving right along to part three, the climax, the death of John Bell. So the historical texts make one thing abundantly clear. Kate wasn't just there to put on a parlor trick. No, she made it her primary, horrifying goal to kill John Bell Sr. Through unrelenting psychological and physical abuse over the years, she systematically broke him down. The torment got so incredibly severe that John Bell became completely bedridden and just overwhelmingly weak. We can really trace the brutal escalation here. After years of this abuse leading up to 1820, everything finally comes to a head on December 20th. On that specific day, John Bell Jr. is searching the cupboard and discovers this unfamiliar, highly suspicious vial. Inside it is a dark, smoky liquid. And the creepy part? Literally no one in the family recognizes it or knows where it came from. And the entity? She didn't hide her actions at all. She didn't even try to make it look like natural causes. Actually, she actively bragged to the family about what she had done. As the source text states, the witch claimed she had given the man she mockingly called Old Jack a fatal dose of that exact smoky liquid while he slept. She wanted the credit for the murder. How chilling is that? So to confirm the vial's unnatural origins, and let's be real, probably out of sheer panic, the family took that dark, smoky liquid and threw it directly into the fireplace. But it didn't just sizzle out. According to the accounts, it immediately erupted into a bright blue flame. It was this final, terrifying, visual confirmation of the supernatural poison that had just taken John Bell's life. Which leads us to our final section, Part 4, the aftermath, the vow and legacy. Because right before completely departing, the witch made a terrifying, highly specific vow. She promised the family that she would return in exactly 137 years to once again haunt the descendants of the Bell family. Basically, she set a supernatural timer. And this isn't just some abstract historical tale confined to dusty old books. You can actually visit the physical site today. As noted in our source materials, you can explore the Bell family cabin and the really famous limestone cave right there on the property where the spirit supposedly hid out. If you just check the local tour schedules on the historic Bell Witch Cave website, you can literally stand in the exact places where this American nightmare unfolded. But I'm gonna leave you with this chilling thought to calculate on your own. We know from the chronology that John Bell died in the winter of 1820, right? So, if Kate made a sworn vow to return exactly 137 years after his death, well, that brings us to the year 1957. So, what exactly happened when that timer ran out? Did the descendants experience the return of Kate? It's a fascinating piece of history that just continues to echo, honestly, much like the voice of the Bell Witch herself. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep your eyes open for more incredible dives into the source material.